So I met this chick at the bar.
Yeah?
Oh, dude, she was hot. She was just like, hey,
man,
you just want to
awesome.
fuck? And I was like, yeah.
Too easy.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
CIB.
Oh.
Hey, where'd you earn that CIB at?
The PX?
What?
It's not stolen valor. I bought it with my... Oh!
Hey guys,
Hey.
I have absolutely no friggin' idea what happened. This was supposed to be an FP3 production, and Jeff was supposed to do something El Jefe, but El Jefe and the other Riri boys have somehow fucked this up, and I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. But today, I want to introduce Clean Sanchez, as known in the chat. You guys have probably seen him in there, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, and he can give you any additional information.
Yeah, how you guys doing? I'm Clean Sanchez. I'm not dirty. That's my little brother. He actually goes by that name. I'm a former 92 golf. That's now it's called culinary specialist. Back then it was called food operations specialist. And I'm currently a multi podcast producer at the moment for shows like DD214 Network, formerly known as DD214 Gaming, Yumi and Lore, Clean Friends, Bong Rips and Video Games, and The Artificial Mind, with many more coming soon. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you on here. I've been watching the DD214 Network channel, and I think it's great. Great channel. Josh kind of turned me on to it. And actually, he kind of connected us to get together to be able to do a Throat Punch Thursday. Some of the people in the chat, Kittle said they had a little bit too much of an after party last night. The fat dorks jacked it up yet again. But that's okay. That's okay. We're fluid.
Pretty late.
Luckily, I still have my channel, so I can always get it up there. Most of you guys will get the notifications on it. So just a couple of things. Greg Brady, thank you so much there for the man. See, we're banging out money already here. Look at this shit.
This is the way.
Yeah. So, all the weed money you were going to give to Josh, fuck him. They couldn't get this set up today. So we grabbed the bull by the horns and came on my channel. So we got a couple of things to talk about, really.
Yeah.
Kaiser, they're just doing some really crazy shit. He's so embedded with that goofy jailer guy. But everybody, we keep saying it, but his people keep saying it too. Oh, he's already, said that he never did any of that stuff. Well, no, he hasn't. He's never come out and said, I lied about my entire military career, and this is what my military career was. He's never done it.
That's tiring. So I've been watching. So I actually was brought to you guys by Kelly W, and the first thing that I saw was this thing about Kaiser, and I was like, holy shit, there's another one. So found out about your guys' channel. I was watching it. You guys were talking about Kaiser, and I just had to do the deep dive myself. And which we'll get to later. I actually had a run-in with the Jagaloon myself, and fucking asshole this guy was. But it's I've seen the videos of the guy with all the medals on his jacket. Then the other ones with the one soldier who had flip-flops on. And then there's Kaiser. And Kaiser is a special case because this guy, not only does he double down, I mean, there was just the revelation of the tattoo too, which I thought was probably the most hilarious part of it all too. Because there's even a lot of veterans that don't put their own units and references on their own bodies most of the time, unless it's, they have the flag, the rifles, this usually the same theme, but Kaiser just really doubled down. And I just got to say, I've said it before, he's a golden goose piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's a golden goose piece of shit. And I just don't understand why someone needs to lie about something like this. I mean, we get it. We get it. You want your benefits. You want your it's too much at this point, and I'm ready for the big drop to happen, the big reveal, because it's gonna happen.
Yep. I mean, his records have already been leaked out. Everything was acquired legally through Freedom of Information Act requests. The state of Alabama National Guard, they were awesome, provided all the documentation. And and it's non-disputable. Even though he said, "Oh, well, you should have sent me an email." I said, "Why? Have you got documentation that can refute what official records coming from the Alabama National Guard?" No, you've got nothing. So, and yes, let's see.
And from what I understand,
this is Clean Sanchez from DD214 Network.
So I just want to get this correct. For a video that I watched of yours, he only did like 30 something days, if even that.
He did his first time around. His first time around was like 35 days or something.
Yeah.
That was in 98. Medical drop. He got a waiver, came back in 05. Never made it through basic training, but was held on medical hold until like 7 or 8 months for treatment. And then again, an uncharacterized boot to the curb.
Yeah, and
he did get severance pay, and
really?
He says he's 40% VA, but I don't think they even pay out for 40%. I don't know. I thought it had to be above 50.
Yeah, because I'm way over that. You know what I mean, myself, and that's, It doesn't make sense to me, and even then, the 30 something days in boot camp, even in the paperwork, that doesn't even equate to you being a veteran, because I believe 180 days, I believe, is the
by regulation, 180 days of continuous active duty service, other than for initial duty training, IDT,
which he did none of. Yeah,
which he did absolutely zero. But there are exceptions to that. People that do get seriously injured in basic training or things like that. And I've got Dependa said, also known as Trump said, that retard keeps saying that somebody who went to their MEPS physical and failed because of pregnancy is a veteran and is due services because being pregnant is an injury.
MEPS is just processing.
I don't know if there was a car wreck and somebody's dick slid into her or what, but yeah,
it's all funny business. He's the guy's on the wall of shame. He's on the wall of shame. I mean, everything. It's like when you hear the guy talk, and then even with his drug issues, and with his recent happenings, I mean, nothing is adding up, and the ground is going to break beneath him. I mean, even if now that the paperwork was even leaked itself, it's over. Yeah, it's over for the guy. It's like what are these guys? Vice? They're probably gonna make a documentary about this.
Yep. Yeah. There needs to be. All right. Enough about and then we've got Todd the Wad, the most recent.
Oh man, yeah.
I had made a comment on one of his videos, and while he was doing his video, he was addressing people in his video chat, and they were saying it's illegal to get somebody's DD214 and blah 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 blah. He wasn't correcting them. I went into the comment section and just put, I love how all these people are saying you can't get them. He took that as, this is how fucking twisted this dude is. He took that as a threat against him. He's yeah. So anyway,
And
then
the
he
community
starts
doubled
attacking
down.
me, and I went on his stream, and it was obvious he was that guy in the unit. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. I can
Yeah,
tell by the look on your face.
big
You're
old
like,
boaster.
yep, that guy. Every unit's got one, and Todd was it.
You know, he, uh, Todd's an interesting case too. We have a guy that did did do his work. He did serve, but there's also an over exaggeration of the things that he did.
Well,
And
we don't know yet.
oh, we don't know you. We're still investigating.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're still waiting on paperwork, but
Yeah.
it's coming because he fucking poked the bear. I didn't give a shit about this guy, but when he came after me and told me and mentioned to me that he was going to ruin my credibility,
The
yeah,
one thing I didn't like is that where it sounded like he was questioning your service as well. You know, or like not questioning your service, but questioning your I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here, to be honest with you. But he was questioning a lot of things about you yourself, and that's where
yeah.
I felt offended for you, you know, because
He and I don't get offended because I don't let that shit bother me.
yeah, you can't.
But he said I was QMP or QMB, the Qualitative Management Board, which I wasn't. I got out in '92 with 13 years, 10 months. I went into the IRR at that point, and that was during they had what they call SSB or VSI.
Yeah.
VSI is a variable separation incentive, and I took that VSI. So for the next 27 years, I was getting a check every month
Oh, fuck
or
yeah.
every year, once
Yeah.
a year. So during that time frame, I had to stay in the IRR. Shortly after I stayed in the IRR, they changed the rules and they said, well, no, you can actually go to a reserve unit. So I did
Oh,
that. Then I transferred from the reserves to the guard, and I jumped around in the guard. I had to go to 13 Bravo Cannococker School to get into a guard unit because that's what was close to me. So I did that. And then there was an MP slot that opened up. So, of course, I jumped on that because I already had the MP MOS. And
fantastic.
the promotions were way better for MPs. And then we transferred from down in Georgia. I transferred up to Connecticut Guard, deployed, came back, stayed on active duty after my deployment. I had bilateral shoulder surgeries. I stayed in.
I mean that's just the will, you know. That's the will.
That's it.
You know, it's actually interesting. When were you in Connecticut?
We moved back up here in 2004.
Oh wow, so you've been here ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
actually moved back to my hometown. I live in Massachusetts.
oh,
And
nice. I'm right under you.
yeah, I couldn't find I couldn't find a unit in Massachusetts to transfer into. They were all full up on E7s. And so I managed to find a unit that was getting ready to deploy in Connecticut, an MP unit. So I jumped right on that.
Interesting. There was actually just maybe like within the last 5 years, there was I don't remember which Massachusetts guard unit there was, but there was a soldier that was there, and he actually finished up his time and he was a professional wrestler during his time in the guard. And when his popularity rose, he, you know, got out of the military. But it's you know, it just goes to show you could do anything when you get out, you know, and
Yep.
you could, whether you're guard or active. And there's always the divisive jokes between the two, but we're all one. We're all one. I love the guard. I love
Yeah.
those guys.
Oh well, according to Todd, it's the nasty girls. But unfortunately, there's a lot of nasty girls that have seen way more combat than he would ever see.
This is actually true. And a lot of people don't even know that the National Guard, they are out there a lot. It's sometimes a lot more than the active guys. You know,
Well, that's
you hear
like
it.
I was with a guard unit. We were in Mosul, Iraq. We were going outside the wire every day, and First Cav Division 27, they were the ones guarding the fob, an infantry unit.
And they got it
They
done.
they were pissed. They were guarding the fob, and we were rolling out the wire every day down in the city.
That's amazing. I got
So
to
it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I got to speak to a lot of National Guard guys after like 9/11 happened. And because they were stationed, I grew up across the river from New York City, so
Oh
myself and
man,
my family would always go there. So after, the attacks happened, I got to speak to a lot of guard members, and they were some of the coolest and most badass individuals I've ever met. Oh, which kind of like led me into my time to go in too. But a lot of people, I know a lot of people on the outside underestimate them, but if they only knew, it's one of those, if you know, the Nat Guard,
yeah.
they are
Uh,
nasty. They're nasty as fuck.
let's do this. Let's. I'm gonna go put another cup of coffee on, and I want to.
Yeah,
And we've already gone over your. I've already gone over your thing with you, but why don't you talk about when you made the decision to go in, where you went to basic, um, how that worked out
absolutely.
with your wife and all that, and I will
Yeah,
be right back in a second.
absolutely. So in 2012, I was very interesting situation. I was kind of dabbling, doing different things in my life, that experimenting with drugs, and my wife was pregnant, and I had to do something with my life. I had to make a better decision, right? Because let's say I can't raise a kid that way. I had no money, barely had a home, so it was time to it was time to go. And so I signed my contract on April 20th, 4/20, 2012, and did my MEPS and all that overnight in the Staten Island hotel and all that. And at first I was going to be infantry, and I went to go tell my wife. I was like, "Hey, baby, I'm joining the army." And yeah, she, it was an interesting conversation. She accepted it, but we had to talk. Infantry. I was about to have my first child. Maybe infantry wasn't the best choice, and I went back to good old Sergeant Ventura, my recruiter. He explained to me I was going to go into water filtration, and from there, did all the little meetings that I had to do with my recruiters during the time, the PT to prepare me for the time, and they gave my job to someone else, and they said on October 15th, you're going to be a cook and you're going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I said, no problem. Okay. And so the next day we bus over to MEPS, which was at Fort Hamilton, New York, which is a really cool little base too, by the way. It's very small. It's up on a giant cliff. And I'll never forget the first thing I saw when I walked in there, and it was a giant painting of Mike Murphy. It's a it's a and I believe that's actually the same MEP station that Mike Murphy actually processed through. And I mean, from that moment on, I was like, okay, that's the badass right there. We all know what happened with Mike Murphy, and he was a big influence in my life, learning about what happened to him. And so it was time to go. It was time to go to now Fort Jackson, which is in South Carolina. And man, I'll never forget going in there the first couple days. I remember the first day we had a guy, they go through your bags, they go through your military bags and make you empty out all your shit. Is that Stone Vet's Oh, that's funny. And they're taking all our stuff, and we had a guy who had shaving cream all over his hand. His shaving cream busted. His shaving cream busted in his bag, and he pulled it all out. And go big shout out to Drill Sergeant Thomas at the time. He looked at him and he was like, "Soldier, beat your face." We all know what beat your face means, right? But this guy didn't, and this guy proceeded to smack himself in the face with the shaving cream. He was literally beating his face with the shaving cream. Oh my God. But yeah, there we had fight nights in the trailers. Oh, so we were 161. We didn't get the fancy buildings where all the other guys got to be. We got the little shitty trailers with the 30 beds inside of it and the 2 pillars in the middle. And man, we had fight nights in there. We had the guy practically break his face on the sink. He had a big old black eye, which we all know what happened. It wasn't the sink. And yeah, and then it came to a point where I was absolutely fucking tired and I was about to quit. And it was interesting too, because my drill sergeant told me, he was like, your push-ups are borderline, your sit-ups are borderline, but you could fucking run. He goes, you're good. You're one of the top in your class. You're really good with your academics. Why do you want to leave? And for me, I was just at this very crazy mental point because I've never been through anything like that in my life. Separated from my family. And then on top of that, Hurricane Sandy happened while I was in boot camp. So my wife was, suffering with that while I was in training with absolutely, it was crazy.
I could see that too, because you weren't like me. I went in, I wasn't married, didn't have a girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Really had nothing other than getting in trouble all the time. And,
yeah, it was
hot
weird.
rodding my cars up and down the street. So I went in, but you already had a life. You've got a wife who's pregnant with your first, and
yep.
here you are going in the Army. So
yeah,
I can understand why you felt that way.
It was very overwhelming, especially when the hurricane happened. I was shitting bricks for weeks, not knowing if my wife was going to be okay or if my child was going to be okay, who was already born. And, I wanted to go home. And I remember telling the drill sergeant, he was like, look, you're going home for Christmas Exodus in like 3 weeks. Like, you're good. Like, you got this. And so he called my wife. And my wife was like, and like I said, I was going through some hard times. I was making bad decisions. And my wife said, there's no place for you to go if you come back. You have to do this. And then that's when it was like, that engine started roaring in me, and I had to get it done, and I did. And got home for Christmas Exodus, which was, listen, if you go to boot camp and you're in that time during the end of the year, you're spoiled with that 1 week, because when you come back and you do those 3 weeks in the field to end your time, it is motivating. It is a drain, but it is one of the best times of your fucking life. And I'll never forget that. I even had a misfire, a defective. What do you say that? A negligent. Yep.
Negligent discharge.
I had a negligent discharge in my foxhole during boot camp with the blank. And I'm going to say it. My dumbass was in La La Land, sitting there in the foxhole looking into the forest. And I didn't properly clear my weapon. And I was looking into the woods, and I was imagining that enemies were coming my way. And I put my weapon from safe to semi, and I shot it. And lo and behold, there was a blank in there. And yeah. And I remember my drill sergeant coming in. He was like, "What the fuck was that?"
He must have lost his fucking mind.
He looked at me. He was like, "Who the fuck was that?" And I went right up to him, like, parade rest. It was me, drill sar. God damn it, Sanchez. Beat your face. That was an interesting time. And, we ended the time in glory. Everyone finished up. We actually had 2 people that didn't come back from Exodus. And then we proceeded to the beautiful Fort Lee in Virginia, which was one of the nicest bases I've ever seen in my life. Beautiful. I believe it's full. I believe that's full TRADOC too. Um, if you're a quartermaster, you're going to be going there, and nothing really special happened there. I learned how to bake a cake. I learned how to make spaghetti and things like that. But also, I think the most important part was learning food safeties, and which was leading me into my job as a 92 Golf. I did confess something. Yep.
Making food for, hundreds of people at a time. That's got to be crazy.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when you're in the training, you're just like in the moment, like I'm just here for school. I'm just here to get it done. But when you realize that how important your job is to those who go into battle and for those who go into training, especially with the diets that we had to enforce for the soldiers, it's something else clicked now. So now I'm like, okay, now I'm doing something important. I thought when being a cook, I don't want to say I was embarrassed, but I wanted to be like something cool. I wanted to do like mechanics, but I don't even know how to fix an engine,
Yeah.
And cook just worked for me, and that was all that I could ever ask for. And when I, and again, nothing special happened during my time in Fort Lee. And I got the notification, hey, you're going to Fort Benning, Georgia. You're leaving in about 2 weeks. Let's go. And I've growing up. Why? Oh, Squillini, because I've been hanging on to these. So now we get into Fort Benning. And the first thing I'm thinking is, wow, this is a culture shock. I grew up in the New York, New Jersey area, and everything is buildings, everything is, out there. And now I'm going to a place where is completely different than what I'm used to. We're talking trees, flat lands, everything is far away from each other. And I didn't own a car yet. So the first thing I had to do was buy myself a car. So I bought myself a good old piece of shit orange Cobalt. And then we started the training, and I had a really great NCO, my first NCO, Sergeant Wiley. And she pushed me, man. I was a little lazy piece of shit coming in, and I still had that little mentality. So there were times when she would call me and she'd be like, roll the fuck out of bed. It's time to get to work. And what was cool is that she showed me everything in Fort Benning, the jump towers, all Harmony Church. I never got to see. There was one part of Fort Benning that I never got to see, and I believe that it's a training center on near Harmony Church. I can't remember it, but man, getting into Fort Benning was very super weird. And one of the first things I really wanted was to get my family down here. I saw my family at graduation. I saw my family when I left, and I still had no money, didn't know what to do. And the first thing I did was, hey, when can I get when can we start? And that was one of the first things. Well, it was maybe my first 2-3 weeks. Hey, I would like to get my family here. Got the house, which was a interesting process too, because I've never bought a house before. That was the first time me being independent, me going into a whole new world and doing things on my own without my mother and my family around me.
So you didn't stay in on-base housing?
Yeah, I did. I thought that was the best. I thought that at that time was the best decision. Then, you can't even sleep with your wife without someone listening on the other side of the wall sometimes, because those walls are thin. But yeah, I lived on on-base housing, and I finally got my family down. And actually, what's funny is that on my birthday, coming down from getting my family, my transmission cracked on my car. So I had to get a whole new transmission and drive all the way back down to Fort Benning. And then that's when the work started. That's when I really started to know what the operational army was. Training every day. When you're done with work is not done. If you got a formation you got to go to it. But I was on Kelly Hill, 3rd ID Kelly Hill, 3rd BCT, and I was part of the 110th Field Artillery. And I had just gotten there about 6 or 7 days after they came back from Kuwait in 2013. So everyone was just the defect was still closed when I got there. That's how fresh everything was. So when everyone came back to work, that was my first day of work, and I got to learn everything about Gibson Dyna facility, and I got to meet my first sergeants. I got to meet the colonels, the generals, everyone who was part of Kelly Hill that made Kelly Hill so great. And I just want to say one of the best things about Kelly Hill, Sledgehammer, the history behind Third ID itself, from World War II and on, and even before that, to be part of my first active unit, to be part of Third ID was fucking awesome. And that small little Kelly Hill was one of the coolest places I've ever seen in my life. And I mean, what was interesting about this time too was that things were changing. People weren't allowed to say certain words anymore, right? And we had the song Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel. That was our theme song. And they complained about that, and they had to change it, but
I'm so glad I retired in 2011.
yeah, it was that was crazy, because it's such a good song, by the way.
Well,
I love that song.
They changed all the base names and everything else.
They did, yeah. Benning's still the same, is it?
I think it's changed. Fort Bragg's changed.
Everything's, yeah.
But it'll always be Bragg to me, so I don't give a shit what they say.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't delete history. That's always been my stance about that. Now you're deleting history, and I have a huge thing about that. But yeah, I had a really good time. I think one of my favorite times were Thanksgiving cooking, right? And we, being a cook, man, that was, I mean, sometimes you're working anywhere between 8 to maybe sometimes 12 hours a day, depending on how many people you have in the defect. And it wasn't, what was so crazy was that it was the only building on Kelly Hill where all units were together in one, working together. 115th, 269, myself in 110th. Then there was 203rd BSB as well.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that the cooks are up before everybody else.
Yep.
They get off after everybody else is already off.
Yep.
I mean, it's a long day. I don't know how shifts worked or whatever, but
well, the shifts were interesting because we had about 30 people. We had about 30 people at a time, and within those 30 people, we would split the shifts between 15 and 15 for 2 shifts. And it worked for a long time. We even had an overnight team too when the team got bigger. And so it would start. So morning shift would be from 5 a.m. to about 1 p.m. And that's if you had the morning shift. And depending on what shift you're on, you're either doing PT before or after. You always got to get your PT in no matter what. They made sure that was the thing. Even if you had to do it inside the defect, you're doing your PT. Because when it rained, like they say, if it ain't raining, you ain't training. But on Kelly Hill, if you're not doing PT outside, you're doing PT either in the defect building, in the little PX that's inside down the block. They're gonna find a place for you to do it. And that was really cool. I think the only thing I missed out during my time in Kelly Hill was overnight guard duty. I never once did that. And I think that came with the weird shifts that we were getting as cooks. But it was just very weird to go to, sign off for leave and see a guy that's been sitting there for 24 hours and thinking like, I've never had to do that before. And, it's not a brag. It's just kind of like, well, how come I didn't get to do that?
Well, yeah, it's because you guys had an operational mission where you had to, I mean, like you said, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah. And it was great. It just, but obviously it didn't come without its inconsistencies and its troubles and things like that. We had NCOs that were doing things that they weren't supposed to. Soldiers disappearing.
Oh
my, it's a shocker, right? soldiers going AWOL and, paperwork being lost. And I even had a moment. From on January 2014 through September 2014, I had a cyst the size of a golf ball coming out of my foot, right? And it took away my time to do proper PT, proper push-ups, proper sit-ups, to run. I didn't run for almost 2 years. And they finally got the cyst out. And this is something that I've spoken about before, and I like talking about this because this was a low point in my life where I gained a lot of weight, and that was due to a lot of depression I was stress eating a lot. I wasn't at that time, I wasn't fulfilling all the needs that a soldier should have been, even during an injury. And it some of that stuff, it weighed down on me a lot. I wanted to do something better. And at that time, I actually found out that there was a combat photographer, MOS. And I really, really, really wanted to do it. And there was just really not a lot happening for me because of the surgery. My PT scores were down. I wasn't doing PT tests. And that was killing everything for me. And so when I finally got the stitches out, my foot was still bleeding. They gave me an opportunity to take a PT test. And I took the PT test, and even with with my foot bleeding, I passed the PT test just to find out it was a diagnostic. And emotionally, and guys, don't do what I did. Emotionally, I went right back to the med office, and I went right back on profile because of the frustration that I had from that, because I felt like that I would never get those scores again. And then the paperwork started to release me. They wanted to release me from the military. I was gaining a lot of weight. I was 5'9", 240 pounds. And, and I don't want to say that they were like fat shaming, right? Because that's not what they were doing. There's a certain height and weight that you need to be in order to perform your actions in the military. And I wasn't doing that. And I think, like, on top of that, it was making me feel like shit more because I was doing that, and I knew, and they knew about it.
Let's not sugarcoat it either. The military fat shames. They do.
Yeah.
Because you have to be in shape to be able to perform your duties and your mission. You have to be combat ready. So they do. They fat shame. If you get a little bit overweight, you go on the overweight program. They call it the Fat Boy program.
Yep.
They give them a special diet, as as a cook, that there were special diets for certain people. They weren't allowed to, belly up to the fucking dessert trays.
They had to come. Had to come with paperwork too.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Profile paperwork. It was interesting.
So let's not sugarcoat it. They fat shame.
Yeah,
and they do it for a reason. That's because you have to be physically fit and ready to perform combat duties. Regardless,
absolutely.
When on deployment, MP companies, we had cooks in our company. You know what they did? They were fucking turret gunners.
There you go. Yeah.
The NCOs supervised the KBR employees in the mess hall and the DFAC, and the cooks were right out there with us as a turret gunner or a driver or whatever. So don't think just because you got a job as a clerk or whatever, non-combat arms, that you're not going to be thrust into that.
Yeah, and you know what? That's actually the next thing too, because during this time, they were writing me up paperwork, and then all of a sudden, I had packed up my house, and I get called by the master sergeant, and she tells me, "We lost your paperwork," and I'm like, okay. So at this point, I'm pissed off, but I'm also in a great mood, because I get to kind of prove myself at least one more time. But then I just packed up my whole house, and some of it was already sent to New Jersey. So I took this opportunity and to really do better. And this was probably my best run. We were about to go into NTC. We were about to, they were talking about deployments. And I felt like, you know what? now I finally have an opportunity. Now I finally have a chance. And in 2000, by the end of 2015, going into 2016, the military restructured, and everything. I actually had to write this down too, because I was talking to my wife about this. There were like budget, from what I understand, there were budget constraints and they wanted to rebalance the force, and I was in that. So Third ID on Kelly Hill, they disbanded it. They closed it down. And so many other people got sent off to other units in Fort Benning, but the cooks got sent to 203rd BSB, the main support group over on Kelly Hill. And we all, instead of now just becoming 5 different units like the Power Rangers, we were all just one unit now under one banner as cooks. And that was a really motivating thing. But the fact that we lost the chance to deploy was kind of a bummer. And then from there, I made the decision not to re-enlist. And it was many things. It was, at that point now, I have 3 kids, and they were growing up. I wanted to be there for them. I knew that if I had went to another station, I would have been immediately deployed, and then I would have missed probably the first year of my newborn kids. So I sometimes I do regret not re-enlisting, but at the same time, when I look at what I'm doing today, I'm so happy with the decision that I made, because I still love what they did, and I got out honorably, man. And I look back at what I did, and a lot of people, which we were talking about before, a lot of them are not happy with their service, and they have to exaggerate what they've done. But this little bit, I have one on box 13, Army Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Service Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Army Service Ribbing, and then nothing else follows. Those are very, simple, basic, mostly basic ribbons that you get just for being in. But I'm proud of every single one of those ribbons.
Oh yeah.
Like it doesn't bother me that I, and it did at one point. It did bother me. But then I, from Jay and Squillini from DD214 Network, they, helped me understand within the last couple of years, like, you did exactly what the service asked of you, and you did a damn good job at it. And from there on in, I've had a better light on it, because it's true. You should not be ashamed, no matter what you do. Even if, I know guys that served 6 years and then got kicked out for being overweight, and they are still proud of their fucking service, regardless of how it ended, and it's, it really, I love this, I love this, my DD214, and I love everything that I did in the military, and the best things that I did were the training. Okay. The VR trainings that we had to do, shooting a paper wall, or the rotate. We did like this crazy rotating truck where they put you in a situation where the truck
simulator.
Yep, there we go. Yeah, we did that. I threw up. Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, rollover simulator, man. I forgot all about that. That I mean, they were just coming out with those right before I retired, but because of all the rollovers, people getting killed in rollovers. They actually have procedures that you do if your truck's going over, quick releases for the turret gunner to drop them into the turret.
Yeah.
Just lots of craziness. And it's stuff like that I forgot about.
Yeah, the rollover simulator was pretty crazy too. I did throw up on it, and I remember, like, I think we were waiting like 2 hours for the line. I remember looking at that thing. I'm like, that thing is fucking badass. I can't wait to go in it. And yeah, we did. I got sick on it, but that was one of the coolest trainings I've ever did. But like I always loved doing what was it? The war games out in the field. And that was the cool thing. In the field, we had the best food. Yeah, we had our MREs, but we had the steaks, the eggs, they were questionable, but they were still good, you know. I even had an allergic reaction to grape juice. That
Ugh.
my first sergeant Jerrigan looked at me and said, "You look like a Klingon from Star Trek right now. Go home." But yeah, I loved I'm very happy with everything that I did. And then from there, I decided, what the fuck am I going to do from here? Am I going to work in a factory for the rest of my life, or am I going to do something better? And that leads me to, I'm now on my 5th year of doing podcasting and content creation and videography. And man, I couldn't be more happier with what the military, and it sounds like I'm sucking the military's ass, but it's honestly fucking true. If it wasn't for the benefits, the resources, the people who have helped me along the way. I even was chosen. By any chance, are you a hockey fan?
I watched the Bruins.
Oh, so are you familiar with Kyle Palmieri?
I know the name.
He chose me he chose me as a veteran who deserved a car, and I was honored at the Kyle Palmieri Foundation.
Nice.
I did a speech and everything for that. That happened right before the pandemic. I want to say it happened like a month before the pandemic. They donated a car to me, and that changed my life.
Awesome.
Around that time I had just received my military benefits. And that was kind of that paperwork thing is kind of a struggle too, right? And I remember,
you had that cyst in your foot, which is definitely most likely fucked up your leg forever.
Yeah.
It takes forever to get the VA stuff and get all the paperwork, and hope and pray they didn't lose something.
Yeah, and I have to say, and this is a rare story. First time go with paperwork, got it back in 3 months. It was a 3-month waiting for me. Did all the paperwork myself without the help of the DAV or a VA service. And the day that I received my benefits was the day I nearly lost my home. Like, I was about to get kicked out of my home, and because of the military saved my life. I probably would have been, slinging drugs in New Jersey somewhere, making bad decisions, and the fucking army made a man out of me. Within a couple weeks, and now I'm here, using some of the same leadership that I wish I could have used in the military, using it with some of the guys that I work with like in DD 214, and I try. And it's not all veterans I work with, but I do have other shows that I work with other veterans on. And it's so, and that's not to take away from the civilians that I work with, because they do great work too. But when it comes to working with the veterans, they are constantly, the mission is there, and it's like a different energy when you're working with veterans, and there's something super special about that. And I couldn't be more grateful for everything that has transpired during that time too,
I don't know if you just saw the text message, but one of the Pogues has awoken. El Jefe.
I see it.
I screwed up my alarm.
I fucked up my alarm.
Yeah.
And let me say, guys, Pogue, it's okay to be a Pogue. I'm a Pogue, all right? It's all right. It's completely okay, and if it's I'm okay, roast me. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not accepting it, I don't know what you're doing with your fucking life, to be honest with you. But life is great. Being a veteran is great, helping other veterans.
I've been watching he said, "Can I fix it?" Todd had us up till 3 a.m. Todd, let's talk a little bit about Todd.
Let's talk about Todd.
Todd's showing his dress greens, right?
Oh,
now,
shit.
Todd shows his dress greens. Now, dress greens have been out since forever. They were out actually when I retired in 2011. It was dress blues at the time, or the Army service uniform. but evidently Todd was too cheap to go out and buy a set of blues. So he's holding up a set of greens, and a lot of the ribbons on the greens. Now this ribbon rack I've got behind me here, that's not my ribbon rack.
Did
My
he assume
ribbon,
it was?
he did. Now I've got almost all of those awards. However, let me see if I can do this without completely screwing things up. So I went on Rack Builder, and I actually, because I had awards that I had never gotten. All right, let's see if I can do this. So this is actually what my rack looks like.
Holy shit.
So when you look at my rack, the bottom is what they call a muck. That's a meritorious unit citation. That was issued to my unit while I was assigned to it during combat operations in Iraq. Therefore,
Which is a thing.
That's the very bottom one down here.
Yeah, and which is the thing that happens, and people seem to forget too. It's the same thing with, like, when people deploy with airborne units and they're not airborne. So don't they get the patch for it, right?
Yeah, you can still wear that combat patch even though you're not airborne.
Same energy.
All right, now you can see my. You should be able to see my pointer there.
Yep.
That's the muck right there. Now these three bottom ribbons, these are National Guard ribbons. This one's from Louisiana for Katrina. We went to Katrina. That's their emergency operations.
Oh no shit.
These two are Connecticut ribbons. One's the humanitarian ribbon. The other one is the emergency service ribbon. My Kuwait Liberation Medal only because I got to Desert Storm late, or I didn't get there for Desert Shield. I was there for Desert Storm, and it was late in Desert Storm. So I was in Kuwait. So I got the Southwest Asia ribbon for that, and I got the Kuwait Liberation Medal for that. Of course, my overseas ribbon with a 3 device, Army Service ribbon, NCO DP, reserve ribbon with an M for mobilization. Then we got like GWAT, humanitarian service medal, the GWAT, Iraq campaign with a star, Southwest Asia with a star, Korean service ribbon, National Defense Service ribbon, good conduct, achievement, ARCOM, MSM, and Bronze Star. So
it's got to be heavy on the chest, right?
I've never really even set that up to put on a uniform, to be truthful. I just did it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, toward the end, when I was getting ready to retire, I had no need to wear my dress uniform. And I just never really, that's like all the National Guard ribbons. I never got any of those on my rack.
Yeah, I was in the era. I was in the era of the dress blue. That was super fucking tight. The tightest thing I've ever worn in my life, to be honest with you. But I missed out. I missed out on the greens, but I did right before my time ended. I was able to wear some OCP, so I was really happy to be able to check out some of those uniforms before I came out.
Yeah, but Todd was showing that, and he's got like a presidential citation and then some other, but those are unit awards. You only wear those while you're assigned to that unit, unless you actually have orders for it.
Yeah.
Now the muck, I have orders for it, so I can wear that. And there's just, his ribbons just don't look right, or he just didn't know enough to get the devices on them that are required for some of them to make sense.
Yeah.
But, he was going off on that with El Jefe. And, I guess they were up till 3 a.m., I guess, dealing with Todd the Wad.
Yeah, the one thing that really bothers me about Todd is how he'll come into chats and start like a whole like counteroffensive, right? And it's so interesting to me because it's like you're on YouTube, okay? You put your face out there, you want people to watch your stuff, but then you start going into other communities and start attacking them like a baby. And now people are seeing the way that you act outside of your channel, and it spreads. This is the fucking internet now. It's to it's kind of crazy, and to see other, I guess the right thing to say is content creators act like that. It's completely unprofessional, especially if you want to build a base to, get your word out or get your message out or sell your merch or anything like that.
I'm just kind of scanning the chat because I am really bad about keeping up with the chat, folks. Somebody asked about the Scotto ribbon. That's actually the Army service ribbon. It is kind of a rainbow colory kind of ribbon.
It's perfect,
and
actually.
they call it the rainbow ribbon, but that's the Army
They do.
service ribbon. For those that don't know,
yeah, and please, for Christ's sake, if just what. And I'm seeing this with actual guys who've actually served too, who've gotten lazy with them putting their awards on their chests. Like I've been seeing this lately too. A couple, like some of these like content creators. It's like I feel like people have forgotten the love of the dress blue or the dress green, right? I don't think anybody appreciates it anymore like they did back in the 60s or in the 40s.
True. Like I said, I never really I built that on Easy Rack Builder or whatever. I suppose I could order it and then I'll have it because most likely I'll get buried in my dress blues when the time comes.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I wore them last year because my father-in-law had requested I wear my dress uniform to his funeral, and he passed away last year. So I actually fit in my dress blues. So
no shit. And how long was it been since you last put them on from that time?
2011.
Oh wow, so not that bad. So you were able to keep that shape, man.
Yeah, I've got a shape. Unlike Kaiser and Todd, they're both shaped like a pear. By their own admissions or by their own proof. Although I don't know how Todd's little feet can hold up that pear ass.
I don't know. Todd looks like he should be selling goats to Jesus back in 4 AD, and fucking Kaiser looks like a fucking car wash attendant that keeps on stealing the quarters. It's
I like that.
Yeah. I and let me I caught a guy lying about his service in my workplace, and I worked at a frozen food factory, right? And this guy came in, he was wearing, and I mean, this guy stood out like a sore fucking thumb, all right? He was wearing a pair of like white sneakers with baggy military pants, and he had like all these workings and stuff like that. So he had a jacket, he had the military jacket with a bunch of patches on it and stuff like that. Patches were on the wrong place and stuff. So I called them out. I'm like, where would you serve with? The Marines. Now my brother is a Marine. So I started asking them all of these questions, and thank God. And this is one tip that I'd like to throw out too. A lot of people don't know this about the companies that you work for, but if you give your DD-214 to the company, like your HR, you get that company gets like a tax break or something like that, or something around that,
for having a certain amount of veterans working for them.
Yeah. And so I started asking this guy questions. He said he just came back from deployment 2 weeks prior to getting this job here. And I asked him, did you get your danger pay? No. Where'd you go? Well, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, no problem. You don't want to talk about it, Let's go talk. Let's go have a smoke or something and talk about our service together. Couldn't even say a goddamn thing. Didn't even remember the base that he was on. He couldn't even tell me where the Marines train. And then I just told him, okay, no problem. I'll see you tomorrow. And that same day I went to HR and I told him, I was like, hey, I'm not a rat. It just really fucking bothers me because he was a Navy veteran too. And I told him, I was like, hey, we got a guy that's fucking lying about his service. And he goes, you know what? He told me he was a veteran. I'm going to ask him for his DD-214 so that we can put it, or whatever paperwork, like whatever proof, not his DD-214, but whatever paperwork to provide to verify that he was a veteran. And he asked him for it. The guy never came back to work. Never saw the guy again.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, and there was actually, and this is actually going to be controversial too. There was a time, and I don't speak to the guy, but my biological father served in the military too. But I could never seem to get an answer out of him other than a couple pictures of him in Desert Storm, which he claims he says he is. I've seen tons of pictures of him in service, his military photo. I even seen a certificate. But I've always questioned him, like, well, what did you do? What were you doing? Why were you there? And I never, it's always so interesting that even from my own father, my own biological father, because I do have a great father who raised me. I don't want to, I want to put that out there, but my biological father claims all these things too. And I just, you got to question everybody. You got to question everybody, even if they did a little service and veterans know where there's an exaggeration.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
One little thing, because there's things that are not even public that veterans know that not one civilian would know in terms of a conversation, included certain jargon that we've used. So,
well, Josh came to me with Kaiser. He says, "Hey, what do you think of this guy?" And I started listening to some of his claims, and just none of it made any sense. The whole Humvee 70 mile an hour RPG, that was the one that just clinched it for me. I said, this guy is full of shit. He's as full of shit as the day is long. And
yeah, and this is like the same thing, because it's funny because my biological father kind of looks like Kaiser. Like they got the same hairline, the same fucking shitty beard and stuff. And I'm not saying that my biological father's lying. I'm just saying he has some questionable stuff that, because I know he wasn't there for long. I know he wasn't there for long, and I feel and when it comes to guys like Kaiser, you look at the guy, you can't even provide a picture. You can't, like, is there a fucking picture of Kaiser? No, not that I've seen.
No, I've never seen any pictures.
There's not one thing, not even a fucking Halloween photo of him in an army uniform. So there, it goes to show. It goes to show. But it makes it fucking with Jam and Jet. I love that guy, man. And it's so, I love that there's people out here in the world that do shitty things like that, because it makes guys like us feel so much better about the things that we've done in our lives.
It's just, it boggles the mind with all of this shit. And I've had a lot of people, angry vets in the chat. I have all these people asking about his service. I'm like, he served. It's been verified. He was in the Navy. He was in the Coast Guard. Okay, leave the guy alone. If you don't like him, don't watch him.
That's a big thing too. That goes to show with a lot of content. People would rather watch something and talk shit about it than actually enjoy anything.
Yeah, some of the shit just drives me fucking cuckoo.
Yeah,
but
it's actually funny. Draco, I that's the one borough of New York I never lived in. Oh no, Queens is the one I never lived in, but no, I'm Jersey boy through and through, man. Even though I hate it and love it here at the same time,
So Draco, if your dad was in the Air Force in Korea, he was probably at Osan Air Force Base. And when I was stationed at Pyeongtaek in Korea, we had to go up to Osan and do town patrol for the Army side of it. So we worked with the security police, the Air Force security police. But as a matter of fact, I got a couple of tattoos over there. that were questionable, to say the least.
Oh no.
Uh,
Yeah,
well,
that-
they've since been covered up. As a matter of fact, one of them that's the cover up I had
oh
done.
shit, that's beautiful.
So that was the green. You could see it, the green screen. It kind of
Yeah, it
shows
it, it
through on the
takes it
green.
in. It's funny. I had a tattoo over here. Inside this universal triangle here, there's a marijuana leaf. And before I covered this up, when I was enlisting, they were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a foliage leaf. It's foliage. It's not what you think." And the one thing that got me going was that this shitty tattoo had 5 leaves instead of 7. So that was the only difference, that they were able to tell that it wasn't a marijuana leaf, and I still got in with that tattoo in, and I didn't get it changed until maybe a couple years ago. And yeah, I was one of those fucking nerds too that put Jedi on their dog tags as well.
Yeah, and Angry Vet brings something up too. There is a huge problem with guys that don't jump to conclusions too fast when somebody's telling you something, because it's easily verifiable. And even now, this stuff's been verified. People refuse to believe it, especially with like Kaiser.
Yeah, like
His records are out there.
did he ever claim that he ever had a Purple Heart? Is that
Oh
in
yeah,
my
he said he served long enough to have 3 tours at
That's right, the clip.
2 Purple Hearts.
And that's public record, isn't it? Like
Well,
Purple
yeah,
Heart's
it's all
public
been out.
record, yeah.
It's all been out. Every bit of it's public record.
Uh,
The Freedom of
know-
Information Act request is very easy to do, especially when somebody's in the National Guard. You could do it by email, which is what I did with
Yeah.
his. And I just sent an email to the Alabama National Guard requesting his records. And actually, the woman that does their record stuff called me on the phone. And she was beside her. She says, I don't know how this guy ever got in the National Guard to go to basic training, because he needed a waiver and we weren't giving him at the time. So I don't know how he got the waiver to get in.
Well, that's another investigation right there alone. You know what I mean? Like, so
Well, that's on them. That's their recruiters. They were probably just trying to make mission for the recruiters.
that's true. Yeah.
You can't blame them. They're greasy used car salesmen usually, and they're just trying to meet their numbers. And if you've been a recruiter, I don't mean anything by that, but you know what I mean. You're trying to sell the goods.
Yeah, I know a few recruiters who have admitted that themselves as well. Like it's not even a far truth. I mean, I think I went through maybe 4 recruiters before I finally got sent out. They kept on passing me along like a cheap whore, man. It was it was too much. I had 4 different recruiters.
Angry Vet, I don't know. That's never been confirmed. That's the stung by a bee thing. That could be true. He may have had an anaphylactic shock reaction to a bee sting, and that's what got him put out the first time.
Holy shit!
Not verifiable.
I got bit in the fucking neck by a spider.
Ugh.
Yeah, that sucked. That really sucked. But yeah, it's not Kaiser and Todd. They should just have their own show, the Kaiser and Todd show. It's at this point. I mean, they have a whole community of people who wear their pants unbuckled. I'll say, they. And it's just like the people that follow them who are donating all this money. Like maybe Kaiser would actually have good content if he would stop lying about who the fuck he is. Maybe his frauditor shit might actually be good if he wasn't such a piece of shit, And then you got Todd, and all the, the God stuff. But I don't even think God likes him when people act the way that he does.
All right. So we've been going an hour 10.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Try and keep it right at an hour or so.
Yeah.
I don't like to really drag it on because people We've had some great interactions with the chat. It it was great to have you on. It
Very
was nice
fun.
to meet you. I love the channel.
I appreciate you. Yeah, and if anybody wants to see any of my work, it's so easy to find. Just go to cleansanchezmedia.com. I got my directory there, all my portfolios there. I'm on YouTube and Rumble and all that under the same name. I'm easy to find. It's all public record.
Hold on.
And I just want to say I appreciate you guys having me on. I truly love what you guys do. It's like comedic investigative journalism, right? And it works, because there are some people are afraid to say things, and people are afraid to touch on different. Oh, there
you go.
I got you, Squilini. Yeah, everything is there. All my work is there. DD214 Network, Bong Rips and Video Games, The Artificial Mind, Clean and Friends. I do a lot of work, and I have more stuff coming soon. I'm actually wearing my shirt too. I actually have it on. I'm very proud of everything that I've done. I'm very proud of the people that I have worked that I brought into this podcast journey with me. Squilini, Jay Campbell, my buddies Geo Dabs and Strobridge. I work with so many people, and if it wasn't for guys like them, I wouldn't be able to do the work that I do today.
There you go, guys. There's some DD214, and I don't know if you guys noticed, but somebody had their DD214 right there handy. How does that happen?
There's 5 in one. There's 5 in one sleeve right here. It's 5 in one sleeve. But I'm truly grateful for the time. And actually, I know you were talking about having other veterans on. I know plenty I could throw your way that would be more than happy to talk to you.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, just you got my number, so we can do that. Let me just throw the link to your webpage in the chat.
Absolutely.
I think it lets me do it since I own the channel. Yeah, it does. I just wanted to make sure. But I appreciate it so much. And any other veterans, reach out to me, msgretired11@gmail.com. Reach out to me if you want to come on the show. More than happy to have you. Eventually, this is going to go over to FP3 Productions there when the Riri boys.
When they wake up.
Yeah, when they wake up and get their... drop your cocks and grab your socks. It's time to go. And
not come in them today, please.
But anyway, thanks so much. And with that, we're going to end the stream. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you.